Hey, this is Jesse with AverageJesse.com, and today I want to show you how $12 in insect netting might actually be the best tool to use to ensure that the seeds that you plant actually sprout and make it to harvest. So in a previous video that I'll link in the cards here about desert garden hacks, I talked about using wire baskets to protect your crops. And that still holds true, but in order to protect an entire garden bed, you would need a lot of those baskets, and it can be kind of expensive unless you buy them from the dollar store, which is where I found them to be the least expensive, but it's still not a good solution, and it's probably not the most attractive solution. I would come out to my garden beds and I would find that areas that weren't protected had either seedlings pulled out or the seeds themselves had been pulled out by birds. They dug up the seeds and eaten them, doing what birds do. So I've experimented over the last year with a couple other options for protection, and I've really settled down on insect netting as being the best for whole garden bed protection, particularly when direct sowing things like melons or carrots or beets. This past growing season, the garden bed that I used the insect netting on had almost 100% germination on these beets. In addition, this tatsoi does not have all the little bite marks that you'll see out of leafy greens. All in all, this bed has looked immaculate as far as the crop production is concerned. And this bed and this test over the last couple of seasons really solidified that I'm going to use bird netting on all of my beds now. There are a lot of really good YouTube videos that talk about DIY solutions for holding up insect netting or bird netting or frost cloth using PVC or wooden attachments like what I have here, or even some really cool ones that use rebar. But for my experiment, I used these steel reinforced hoops from Amazon. They were, I think, $25. I'll put a link to those in the description. But they worked out really well, and I have no reason to deviate from it, and I probably couldn't make something that looked as good as what I can buy on Amazon. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in the garden bed, and we'll go to the next step after that. On my test bed last year, I took the insect netting and I ran it in between the wire fencing panel that I was using as a trellis, and that worked out really well. It held up fine. We had a couple of really gnarly windstorms in Phoenix last year, and there was no issue. On this raised bed, as you can see, I have some snap peas that are growing, and I can't obviously go underneath because there's a vine in the way. So I'm going to come up with a different solution. So let's roll out the insect netting, cut it to length, and then I'll show you the cheap or probably free way that I'm going to use to hold this netting down. So I've got my net mostly where I want it, and I need to hold it down. You can use rocks or sandbags or any number of things, but I take one of my old hangers from dry cleaning, one of the ones that doesn't have any paint or color on it, and I'll take a pair of wire cutters and I will snip off the ends. I'll bend them down into a little triangle shape, and that is what I'm going to use to poke through the material, and I'll make probably 8 or 10 of these, and I'll go all the way around and pin them down at several spots in the bed, and that should be good enough to keep it where it needs to be. Okay, we've got the netting set up and pinned down, and I'm sure that an enterprising bird might be able to break through my elaborate defense system here, but for about 35 bucks in total materials, it's a really nice insurance policy for my seedlings. I'll keep these on until the seedlings are probably 4 to 6 inches tall, at which point I'll switch over to shade cloth. But I am definitely sold on having hoops in all my garden beds for the rest of the time that I garden. It's been great. Another added benefit is we had a rainstorm last week in Phoenix, and the insect netting helped diffuse those raindrops and prevent my seedlings from getting completely pummeled. And all the seeds from previous years that have fallen out that were germinating are now populating those beds as well, and they're not getting eaten by birds. That's the #1 pest that I have. So I hope you found this interesting. I've got links for the hoops and for the insect netting down below. Once again, this is Jesse with AverageJesse.com. Thanks for watching, and keep on growing.